Part 1. The Discovery Commander Jake Morrison stood quietly on the bridge of the UES Defiant as the ship moved through the strange colors of hyperspace. The swirling lights outside the main window looked like a living rainbow that never stopped dancing. Jake had seen this view many times before, but it still amazed him every time they jumped between star systems. His crew was on their first real mission since Earth joined the big group of alien races called the Galactic Council just 2 years ago. The mission seemed simple enough when they got their orders back on Earth. They needed to fly to a star system called Kepler 442 and look around to see what useful things they could find there. The Council had given Earth the rights to mine minerals and set up bases in that system. It was supposed to be empty of any intelligent life and safe for humans to explore. Jake hoped it would stay that way, because his ship was not built for fighting. War's chief engineer Lisa Bradley was down in the engine room working on the strange new weapon that Earth's military leaders had forced them to install on the ship. Most of the alien races in the Council had complained about it during the planning meetings. They said it was too old-fashioned and would not work against modern alien technology. Lisa did not care what they thought, because she knew human engineering was solid and reliable even if it looked simple to outside eyes. The weapon was called a Railgun, and it worked by using powerful magnets to shoot heavy metal rods at incredible speeds. The aliens all used energy weapons that shot beams of hot plasma or laser light. They had been using these energy weapons for thousands of years and considered them far superior to anything that threw solid objects. Most alien military experts thought kinetic weapons were primitive tools that belonged in museums rather than on modern spaceships. Dr. Alex Turner sat in his small laboratory, reading through the massive database of information that the Council had shared with Earth. As the ship's expert on alien life forms, he needed to know about all the different species they might meet during their mission. The database contained detailed records of over 300 different intelligent races and their military capabilities. Alex found it fascinating but also a little scary to learn how advanced some of these civilizations were compared to humanity. According to the records, most alien races had stopped using kinetic weapons over 10,000 years ago. They considered such weapons crude and ineffective against the advanced defensive systems that modern ships carried. Energy shields could easily stop plasma bolts and laser beams by absorbing or deflecting the energy. The aliens had spent countless centuries perfecting these defensive technologies until they became nearly impenetrable barriers. Alex noticed that the records showed very little information about defenses against solid projectiles moving at high speeds. It seemed like the aliens had simply forgotten that such weapons could be dangerous because they had not encountered them for so long. This oversight might prove important if they ran into any hostile forces during their mission. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis was responsible for the ship's weapons and defensive systems. He had spent months learning how to operate the new railgun and studying its technical specifications. The weapon could accelerate a 2-kilogram tungsten rod to speeds approaching 15% of the speed of light. At those velocities, the kinetic energy carried by the projectile was enormous and could potentially cause devastating damage to any targeted hit. Pete had run countless computer simulations of battles against various alien ship designs found in the Council database. The results were always the same. The railgun could penetrate the armor and shields of even the most advanced alien warships. But Pete knew that computer simulations were not the same as real combat, and he hoped they would never need to test the weapon in an actual fight. Defiant was not a large ship by galactic standards, but it represented the best technology that Earth could produce. The hull was made from advanced composite materials that could withstand the stresses of hyperspace travel and the harsh environment of deep space. The crew of 85 men and women had trained for over a year to prepare for this mission, and they were eager to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. Jake looked at the navigation display and saw that they were almost ready to drop out of hyperspace near their destination. In a few more minutes, they would enter normal space around the Kepler 442 star system and begin their survey work. The star was similar to Earth's sun and had several planets orbiting around it. The fourth planet from the star was particularly interesting because it had large deposits of rare metals that Earth needed for building more spaceships. Specialist Kate Williams was the ship's sensor operator and computer expert. She had programmed the targeting systems for the railgun and made sure all the ship's electronic systems were working properly. Kate was excited about the mission because it would be her first time seeing an alien star system up close. She had studied astronomy since she was a child and dreamed of exploring distant worlds. The countdown timer on the main display showed 30 seconds until they would drop back into normal space. Jake ordered all crew members to their stations and prepared for whatever they might find waiting for them. Most likely the system would be empty, just as the Council's scouts had reported 2 years earlier. But Jake had learned during his military career that it was always better to be prepared for surprises. Chief Bradley's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. She reported that all systems were functioning normally, and the railgun was fully charged and ready for use if needed. The weapon's magnetic coils were storing enormous amounts of electrical energy that could be released in a fraction of a second to launch a projectile at incredible speed. Ben Clark was the ship's communications officer, and he was monitoring all the radio frequencies that alien races commonly used. So far, he had detected nothing but the natural background radiation that came from stars and cosmic phenomena. This was a good sign because it meant they were not likely to encounter any hostile forces in the system. The timer reached 0, and Jake felt the familiar sensation of the ship dropping out of hyperspace. The rainbow colors outside the windows suddenly disappeared and were replaced by the normal black of space, filled with distant stars. In the center of the main display screen was the yellow star that the humans called Kepler 442. Several planets were visible as small dots of light reflecting the star's energy. But something was wrong. Kate's sensor display lit up with warning signals as she detected a massive alien spacecraft orbiting the fourth planet. The ship was at least 5 times larger than the Defiant, and its energy signature matched the pattern of a Zephyrian battlecruiser. Jake's heart sank as he realized their simple survey mission had just become much more complicated. Part 2. The Confrontation. The massive Zephyrian battlecruiser hung in space like a metal mountain blocking out the stars. Jake Morrison stared at the alien vessel on his main screen and felt his stomach tighten with worry. The ship was called the Eternal Dominance according to the identification signals it was broadcasting. Jake knew from the Council database that Zephyrian warships were among the most powerful and dangerous in the entire galaxy. Kate Williams worked frantically at her sensor station trying to get detailed scans of the alien battlecruiser. The readings showed weapon systems that could destroy the Defiant with a single blast. The ship's armor was thick enough to stop most known weapons, and its energy shields were operating at full power. Kate had never seen anything so intimidating in her life, and she hoped they would not have to fight against such overwhelming force. Captain Ryan Hughes of the Zephyrian vessel wasted no time in contacting the human ship. His face appeared on the main communication screen, and Jake could see the arrogance and contempt in the alien's reptilian features. Hughes had dark green scales covering his head and neck, while his yellow eyes glowed with an inner light that made him look even more threatening than most of his species. The translation system converted Hughes's words into English but could not hide the dismissive tone in his voice. He spoke to Jake as if he were addressing a child who had wandered into an adult conversation. The Zephyrian captain made it clear that he considered humans to be primitive newcomers who did not deserve respect from the established powers of the galaxy. Hughes informed Jake that the Kepler 442 system now belonged to the Zephyrian Empire under what he called the right of conquest. This meant that his forces had claimed the system by military strength and would defend it against any challengers. The alien captain gave Jake exactly 10 minutes to turn his ship around and leave the system or face the consequences of defying Zephyrian authority. Jake tried to remain calm and diplomatic as he responded to the alien captain's demands. He explained that the Galactic Council had officially assigned the Kepler 4042 system to humanity for exploration and resource extraction. Earth had followed all the proper procedures and filed all the necessary paperwork to claim legal ownership of the system. The Zephyrian occupation was illegal according to Council law, and Hughes needed to withdraw his forces immediately. The alien captain's response was swift and brutal. He ordered his weapons officer to fire a warning shot that would demonstrate the futility of human resistance. A brilliant beam of superheated plasma erupted from the battlecruiser's main cannon and streaked across space toward the Defiant. The energy bolt passed just a few kilometers from the human ship's hull, and the heat from its passage was enough to trigger temperature alarms throughout the vessel. Jake felt the bridge shake slightly. as the plasma beam's electromagnetic field interfered with the Defiant's electronic systems. The warning shot had been precisely calculated to show Hughes's contempt for human technology without actually destroying the smaller ship. It was a clear message that the Zephyrian captain could have vaporized them. Instantly, if he had chosen to do so, Hughes appeared on the communication screen again, with what might have been a smile on his alien features. He told Jake that plasma weapons had dominated space warfare for over 10,000 years, and no known defense could stop them when fired by an experienced crew. The Zephyrian captain suggested that Jake should surrender immediately, and perhaps his crew would be allowed to return to Earth with their lives intact. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis was already running tactical calculations on his combat computer. The numbers were not encouraging for the human crew. The Zephyrian battlecruiser outgunned them by at least 50-1 in terms of raw firepower. Their plasma shields could absorb energy weapon strikes that would completely destroy lesser vessels. Standard galactic warfare doctrine suggested that the Defiant should retreat immediately and call for reinforcements, but Pete had spent months studying the Railgun system, and he knew something that the Zephyrian captain did not understand. Unlike energy weapons that could be stopped or deflected by shields, kinetic weapons worked on completely different principles. The railgun fired solid projectiles using electromagnetic acceleration, rather than energy beams that could be absorbed by defensive systems. Pete had calculated that a tungsten rod, accelerated to 15% of light speed, would carry more kinetic energy than most nuclear weapons. The projectile would be moving so fast that relativistic effects would become significant and add even more destructive power to the impact. More importantly, the solid tungsten rod would not be stopped by energy shields designed to handle plasma bolts and laser beams. Chief Bradley reported from the engine room that the railgun was fully charged and ready to fire. The weapon's magnetic coils were storing enough electrical energy to launch a 2-kilogram projectile at speeds that would make it one of the fastest-moving objects in the galaxy. Lisa had run diagnostics on all the systems and everything was functioning perfectly. Dr. Turner was studying the Zephyrian ship's design and trying to identify weak points that the railgun might be able to exploit. The alien vessel was built around a massive central power core that fed energy to the weapons and defensive systems. If that power core could be damaged or destroyed, the entire ship would be crippled and unable to continue fighting. Kate Williams had locked the targeting computer onto the Zephyrian battlecruiser and was tracking its movements through space. The alien ship was maintaining a stable orbit around the fourth planet and did not seem to be taking any evasive action. Hughes was so confident in his vessel's superiority that he was not even bothering to prepare for combat against the smaller human ship. Ben Clark was monitoring all the communication frequencies and had detected signals indicating that the Zephyrian captain was already sending reports to his superiors about the encounter with humans. Hughes was describing the Defiant as a primitive vessel with obsolete weapons that posed no threat to modern alien technology. The arrogant captain was planning to claim credit for driving off the human explorers without firing a single shot in anger. Jake Morrison faced the most important decision of his career and possibly his life. Every piece of conventional military wisdom told him to retreat and avoid a battle that his ship could not win. But he also knew that backing down would send a message to every hostile power in the galaxy that humans could be bullied and intimidated. Earth's reputation and future relationships with alien races might depend on what happened in the next few minutes. The Zephyrian captain was growing impatient and his demands were becoming more threatening with each passing moment. Hughes made it clear that his next communication would be delivered through weapons fire rather than words. Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew and saw determination mixed with fear in their expressions. They were ready to follow his orders no matter what he decided to do. Part 3. The shot. Jake Morrison took a deep breath and made the decision that would change everything. He looked directly at Pete Davis and spoke the single word that would echo across the entire galaxy. Fire. The word hung in the air for a moment as Pete's finger moved toward the firing control. Every person on the bridge held their breath as they waited to see what would happen when human technology met alien arrogance in the darkness of space. The railgun's magnetic coils activated in perfect sequence, starting from the back of the weapon and moving forward along its entire length. Each coil switched on for exactly the right amount of time to add more speed to the tungsten projectile as it raced down the barrel. The process took only 0.3 of a second, but in that brief time the 2-kilogram rod accelerated to 45,000 kilometers per second. Kate Williams watched her targeting display as the computer tracked the projectile's path toward the Zephyrian battlecruiser. The tungsten rod was moving so fast that it appeared as nothing more than a brief flash on the sensors before disappearing into the distance. At such incredible speeds, the projectile was actually starting to behave according to the strange rules of relativity that Einstein had discovered centuries earlier. The rod struck the Zephyrian ship's main plasma conduit with the force of a small nuclear explosion, but unlike energy weapons that spread their damage over a wide area, all of the kinetic energy was focused into a single point of impact no larger than a coin. The tungsten projectile punched through the alien vessel's outer hull as if it were made of paper rather than advanced metallic composites. Captain Hughes felt his ship shudder under the impact but had no idea what had happened. His sensors showed no energy discharge from the human vessel that could account for such massive damage. The plasma conduit that powered his ship's weapons and defensive systems had been completely severed by something that his instruments could not even detect. Emergency alarms began wailing throughout the battlecruiser as backup systems struggled to compensate for the catastrophic failure. The tungsten rod continued its devastating journey through 12 separate decks of the massive alien ship. Each layer of armor and structural support was pierced as easily as the last until the projectile finally came to rest deep in the vessel's interior. The kinetic energy that had not been absorbed by the impact was converted into heat and shock waves that caused additional damage throughout the surrounding areas. Ben Clark watched in amazement as his communication equipment detected emergency broadcasts coming from the Zephyrian battlecruiser. The alien crew was reporting massive system failures and requesting immediate assistance from any nearby vessels. The arrogant captain who had threatened to destroy them minutes earlier was now desperately trying to save his own ship from complete destruction. Chief Bradley monitored the Railgun status from the engine room and was pleased to see that all systems had functioned perfectly. The magnetic coils showed no signs of damage or overheating despite the enormous energies they had channeled. The weapon was already beginning to recharge for another shot if one became necessary. Lisa had always believed in human engineering, and this success proved that simple designs could be more effective than complex alien technology. Dr. Turner studied the sensor readings from the Zephyrian ship and tried to understand exactly what had happened. The alien vessel was venting atmosphere from at least 6 different sections where the tungsten rod had breached the hull. Primary power systems were failing in cascade fashion as damaged circuits overloaded and shut down. The mighty battlecruiser that had seemed invincible just moments before was now struggling to maintain basic life support. Pete Davis ran quick calculations to determine how much damage they had actually caused. The railgun shot had not only destroyed the main plasma conduit, but had also severed several important data cables and structural supports. The Zephyrian ship was effectively crippled and would need extensive repairs before it could pose any threat to other vessels. A single shot from a primitive human weapon had accomplished what an entire fleet of conventional ships might struggle to achieve. Hughes finally managed to re-establish communication with the Defiant, but his voice now carried fear instead of arrogance. The alien captain demanded to know what kind of weapon the humans had used against his ship. His sensors had detected no energy signature powerful enough to cause such devastating damage. The Zephyrian military database contained no records of any weapon that could penetrate their advanced defensive systems so easily. Jake Morrison realized that the aliens literally did not understand what had hit them. Their technology was so focused on energy weapons that they had forgotten the basic physics principle that mass times velocity equals force. The Zephyrians had spent thousands of years perfecting defenses against plasma bolts and laser beams, but had never considered that someone might throw heavy objects at relativistic speeds. Kate Williams detected multiple alien vessels changing course toward their location after picking up the emergency signals from the battlecruiser. Word of the engagement was already spreading through the galactic communication networks faster than any ship could travel. Within hours, every major power in the galaxy would know that humans possessed weapons capable of destroying the most advanced alien warships with a single shot. The crew of the Defiant had expected their first combat engagement to be a desperate struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. Instead, they found themselves staring at a crippled enemy vessel that posed no further threat to anyone. The psychological impact of their victory was even greater than the physical damage they had inflicted. The mighty Zephyrian Empire had been humbled by a species they considered primitive and backward. Dr. Turner realized that this moment would mark a fundamental shift in galactic politics and military thinking. For 10,000 years, alien races had competed to build more powerful energy weapons and stronger defensive shields. Now humans had demonstrated that such technological arms races could be made irrelevant by returning to the basic principles of physics that everyone else had forgotten. Hughes transmitted another message asking if the humans intended to destroy his ship completely. The alien captain seemed genuinely confused by the fact that Jake had not immediately fired additional shots to finish off his crippled vessel. Standard galactic warfare doctrine called for the complete destruction of defeated enemies to prevent them from returning with reinforcements later, but Jake Morrison had no intention of becoming a mass murderer just to prove a point. The railgun shot had been fired in self-defense after the Zephyrians had threatened his crew and fired the first shot. Now that the immediate danger was over, he was more interested in finding a peaceful solution to their conflict than in adding to the destruction and loss of life. Part 4. The message. Jake Morrison made another decision that would surprise everyone, including his own crew. Instead of demanding the Zephyrian ship's surrender or threatening to fire again, he opened a communication channel and offered to help repair the damage his railgun had caused. The bridge crew stared at their commander in shock because this was not how space battles were supposed to end according to any military manual they had ever studied. Captain Hughes appeared on the main screen again, but his reptilian features now showed confusion instead of anger or fear. The alien commander had been prepared for death or capture, but not for an offer of assistance from the enemy who had just destroyed his ship's main systems. Hughes asked Jake to repeat his message because the translation computers must have made an error in converting the human words into Zephyrian language. Jake explained that humanity was not interested in conquest or building an empire. Like so many other species in the galaxy, Earth's explorers wanted to learn about the universe and find new resources to help their growing civilization. They would defend themselves when attacked, but preferred peaceful solutions to conflicts whenever possible. The railgun shot had been fired only because Hughes had threatened them first and showed hostile intent. Dr. Turner suggested that they could provide medical assistance to any injured Zephyrian crew members, while Chief Bradley offered to share repair techniques that might help restore critical systems. The human crew had supplies and equipment that could be useful for emergency repairs, even though their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. Sometimes simple solutions worked better than complex alien methods. Hughes spent several minutes discussing the situation with his officers before responding to Jake's unexpected offer. The Zephyrian captain admitted that his ship's medical bay had been damaged in the railgun strike, and several crew members needed immediate treatment. His engineering teams were struggling to restore power to essential systems because they had no experience dealing with kinetic weapon damage. Jake ordered Ben Clark to prepare a shuttle for launch with a team of volunteers who could assist the aliens. Dr. Turner gathered his medical supplies while Chief Bradley selected tools and spare parts that might be useful for the repair work. Kate Williams volunteered to help with technical problems because her computer skills might be needed to restore damaged electronic systems. The shuttle trip to the Zephyrian battlecruiser took 20 minutes, during which time both crews remained nervous about the unprecedented situation. No one in galactic history could remember enemies helping each other immediately after a battle. Most species fought until one side was completely destroyed or surrendered unconditionally. The human approach to warfare was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. Pete Davis remained on the Defiant to monitor the situation and keep the railgun ready, in case the Zephyrians tried to take advantage of human generosity. He did not really expect treachery, but military training had taught him to always be prepared for surprises. The tungsten projectiles were incredibly powerful, but they took several minutes to recharge between shots, so timing would be critical if another battle became necessary. Dr. Turner was amazed by the interior design of the alien ship as he followed Zephyrian medical personnel to their treatment centers. The corridors were much larger than human ships required, because the reptilian species was taller and broader than most Earth natives. Everything was built on a grand scale that emphasized the power and wealth of the Zephyrian Empire. But even the most impressive technology could not protect against simple physics. The human medical team worked alongside alien doctors to treat injured crew members using techniques that seemed crude but proved surprisingly effective. Human medicine focused on practical solutions rather than advanced technology, and sometimes the direct approach worked better than sophisticated alien methods. Dr. Turner was able to stabilize several patients who had been injured when the railgun projectile caused structural damage throughout the ship. Chief Bradley examined the destroyed plasma conduit and explained to fascinated Zephyrian engineers exactly how the railgun worked. The concept was so simple that most alien species had dismissed it thousands of years ago as ineffective against modern defensive systems. But humanity's implementation achieved velocities that made the physics deadly to any target regardless of how advanced their technology might be. The Zephyrian engineers were particularly interested in the magnetic acceleration system that could push a small piece of metal to such incredible speeds. Their own weapons relied on containing and directing superheated plasma, which required enormous amounts of energy and complex control systems. The human railgun was mechanically simple but achieved results that their most powerful weapons could not match. Kate Williams helped repair damaged computer systems using programming techniques that were considered old-fashioned by galactic standards but worked reliably under difficult conditions. Human software was designed to be robust and fault-tolerant rather than elegant and efficient. When alien systems failed under stress, the simple human approaches often continued working where sophisticated programs crashed completely. The repair work took 3 full days, during which time the human and Zephyrian crews learned to work together despite their very different backgrounds and cultures. Language barriers were overcome through patient communication and shared technical knowledge. Both species discovered that they had more in common than their initial hostile encounter had suggested. Hughes spent hours talking with Jake about human philosophy and military doctrine. The alien captain was particularly curious about why humans had chosen to help their enemies instead of pressing their advantage. Most galactic species would have demanded tribute or territorial concessions after winning such a decisive victory. Human mercy was as foreign to Zephyrian thinking as kinetic weapons had been to their military planning. Jake explained that Earth's leaders believed strength came from building alliances rather than conquering enemies. Humans preferred to trade with other species and learn from their knowledge rather than stealing resources through military force. The galaxy was large enough for everyone to find what they needed without fighting over every planet and star system. Before the human shuttle departed to return to the Defiant, Hughes made an announcement that would soon reach every corner of the galaxy. He transmitted a message on all official Zephyrian communication channels describing the encounter and praising human military capabilities. The alien captain admitted that he had underestimated both human technology and human character. Hughes told his superiors that humans fought with weapons that struck like falling meteors but chose mercy over destruction when victory was achieved. He recommended that all Zephyrian forces should approach human ships with respect, rather than the contempt they had shown to other newer species. The humans had mastered fundamental forces that the established galactic powers had forgotten in their pursuit of ever more complex technologies. Part 5. The aftermath. 6 months after the battle at Kepler 442, Earth's orbital shipyards worked day and night to build new spaceships equipped with improved railgun systems. The news of humanity's victory over the Zephyrian battlecruiser had spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Every major alien power now knew that humans possessed weapons capable of destroying the most advanced warships with a single shot. The demand for human military technology had become overwhelming. Ambassador Claire Roberts stood before the Great Assembly Hall on Galactic Prime, preparing to address representatives from over 300 different alien species. The massive chamber was filled with beings of every imaginable shape and size, all waiting to hear what Earth's spokesperson would say about recent events. Claire had been chosen for this important role because of her skills in diplomacy and her ability to remain calm under pressure. The Galactic Council meeting had been called specifically to discuss the implications of human railgun technology and its impact on the balance of power throughout known space. Many alien species were concerned that humanity might use their new weapons to start conquering other civilizations. Others wanted to form military alliances with Earth to protect themselves from potential enemies. The political situation was more complex than anyone had anticipated. Claire began her speech by explaining that humanity brought much more than weapons to the galactic community. Earth's people were explorers and scientists who wanted to learn about the universe and share their knowledge with other intelligent species. Humans were interested in trade and cultural exchange rather than military conquest. The railgun technology was meant for defense against hostile forces, not for building an empire. The Zephyrian delegate surprised everyone by standing up to support Claire's words. Captain Hughes had been promoted after his encounter with the Defiant and was now serving as his species' military representative to the Council. He told the assembly that humans had demonstrated wisdom and mercy after their victory. The Zephyrians had learned valuable lessons about both human technology and human character during the repair operations. Hughes explained to the gathered aliens that the humans had shown something that most galactic civilizations had forgotten over the centuries. True strength came not from having the most powerful weapons, but from knowing when to use them and when to show restraint. Humanity's decision to help their defeated enemies, instead of destroying them completely, had impressed even the proud Zephyrian military. Leadership, Admiral Scott Carter was appointed as the new head of Earth's Space Defense Force after the previous commander retired following the successful mission. Scott had spent 20 years in the human Navy and understood both the opportunities and dangers that came with their new position in galactic politics. His job was to protect Earth's interests while avoiding unnecessary conflicts with alien powers. Scott reviewed intelligence, reports from across the galaxy that showed interesting developments in military thinking among various species. 3 major alien powers had attempted to reverse engineer railgun technology based on the limited information available from the Kepler 4042 battle. All of these efforts had failed because they could not achieve the precision, manufacturing, and magnetic field control that human engineers considered routine. The aliens had become so focused on energy weapons over thousands of years that they had lost the industrial knowledge needed to build effective kinetic systems. Human factories could produce the specialized components required for railgun construction, but alien manufacturing was designed for completely different types of technology. This gave Earth a significant advantage that would last for many years. Meanwhile, pirate attacks on Council shipping routes had decreased by 70% since word spread about human patrol activities. The criminal organizations that plagued merchant vessels throughout the galaxy had learned that simple kinetic weapons could punch through any known defensive system. Most pirates decided that attacking ships under human protection was too dangerous to be profitable. Dr. Turner had been promoted to head the new interspecies military technology exchange program that facilitated cooperation between Earth and friendly alien governments. His monthly reports showed that multiple species were rediscovering primitive technologies they had abandoned long ago. The Altarians were experimenting with chemical explosives again, while the Centauri Federation was developing new projectile weapons. Alex noted in his latest report that humanity had reminded the galaxy that technological advancement was not always about increasing complexity. Sometimes the most effective solutions were also the simplest ones. Alien engineers who had spent centuries perfecting energy weapons were now studying basic physics principles that human children learned in school. The reversal was both amusing and educational for everyone involved. The Defiant continued its original exploration mission, but was no longer traveling alone through unknown regions of space. A growing fleet of human vessels had joined the survey work carrying railguns and the promise that Earth would stand with any species that chose cooperation over conquest. The sight of human ships had become a symbol of safety for peaceful traders and explorers throughout the galaxy. Jake Morrison had been promoted to Admiral and was now responsible for coordinating all human exploration activities beyond Earth's solar system. His encounter with the Zephyrians had made him famous throughout known space, and his name was mentioned in military academies on dozens of different worlds. Jake remained modest about his role in the historic battle and preferred to focus on future missions rather than past glories. Chief Bradley had become Earth's leading expert on railgun technology and was working with alien scientists to develop even more advanced versions of the weapon. Her engineering team was experimenting with different projectile materials and magnetic acceleration systems that might achieve even higher velocities. Lisa believed that human ingenuity could continue improving, their weapons faster than aliens could develop effective countermeasures. Kate Williams was now training other sensor operators to use the targeting systems that had made the famous shot possible. Her computer programs had been copied and installed on every human warship to ensure consistent accuracy across the growing fleet. Kate took pride in knowing that her software would help protect Earth's interests for many years to come. Ben Clark had been assigned to coordinate communications between all human ships operating in different parts of the galaxy. His job was to make sure that important information reached the right people quickly and accurately. Ben had developed new protocols for sharing intelligence about potential threats and opportunities that human explorers might encounter in their travels. Pete Davis was now teaching alien officers how to use kinetic weapons effectively through the military exchange program. His students included representatives from species that had been fighting wars for thousands of years using energy weapons. Pete found it interesting that these experienced warriors had to learn completely new tactics designed around the unique properties of railgun technology. Years later, military historians would mark the Battle of Kepler 442 as the moment when humanity announced its presence on the galactic stage not with words, but with actions. The railgun shot that destroyed the Zephyrian plasma conduit became known as the shot heard around the galaxy. It was a symbol of human determination and the willingness to find new solutions to old problems. In the deepest reaches of unexplored space where unknown threats still lurked beyond the edges of mapped star systems, the sound of charging magnetic coils had become the galaxy's new song of safety and protection. Wherever human ships traveled, they carried the promise that simple physics and basic engineering could triumph over the most sophisticated alien technology when guided by courage and wisdom.